Yeah,
that specific concussion pain.
yep. And just like any brain injury or concussion, whatever you want to call it, the symptoms come days, weeks, months, years down the road.
And they change.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that's been sort of confounding about this is you think you're living with this basket of symptoms, right? And it's
Right.
hard enough to adjust to living with those symptoms and the deficits. And just when you feel like, okay, I can sort of manage this, the symptoms change. It's like the
Yeah.
head injury says, you think you've got this? Hold my beer. I've got
Right.
something new for you. Right?
Exactly.
Um,
Rewired. I was broken, now I'm whole. Wrote new chapters for my soul. Not the end, just re-inspired. This is me, my life rewired.
Well, it's a great day to have a great day. Today, we're going to learn how an Uber ride turned into a brain injury. And have you ever heard of a place called Bezkestistan? Well, today you're going to find all that information out with our guest. Today, we're welcoming Wendy Lurrie. Did I say that right, Wendy?
yeah, you did.
I didn't even practice.
No, that was perfect.
Hey, every once in a while,
I know.
what's the saying? Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a
Yep,
while.
or a stop clock is right twice a day.
That's right. We had a great conversation just a few days ago, and I got to hear your story. And first of all, I want to jump into the Uber ride. So
Okay.
you grabbed an Uber ride just like everybody else does.
It's in New York,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And plus in
So,
New York.
yeah, in New York, it's just because like nobody drives because
Right.
nobody can park. Um, and by the way, I didn't learn to drive till I was in my 30s, but that's a different story. So I was taking an Uber ride to a guitar lesson. I'm a student of classical guitar. I take lessons just about once a week. And this was just an ordinary Sunday. And when the driver got to my teacher's apartment building, I got out of the car, I went to the back, started to pull my guitar out, and he didn't look to see if I'd moved before he hit the button for the hatch to come down. So the hatch came down, boom, boom, like forehead, bridge of nose, which I've since come to refer to as like skipping stones in hell. That's
Yeah.
what it was like, boom, boom. And I think he asked me if I was okay. I don't really remember. It was very blurry for a moment or two. I do remember that I gave him a 5-star review and a tip because that's sort of like lizard brain that kicks in. I wiped the blood off because I was still bleeding, went upstairs, had my guitar lesson. I have no memory of that guitar lesson. It's like it never happened. Somehow got home, don't remember that either. Said to my husband, I'm okay, but I think I need a little bit of first aid, and didn't realize what had actually happened. And that little incident with the force of that hatch was going to lead to a brain injury. I'm about to, wouldn't say celebrate, but mark the 4-year anniversary of that.
Yeah. So when that happened, did you, after your lesson and you talked to your husband, did you go seek a treatment or did
No,
you just like,
nope,
okay,
nope. I was fine. I was fine because, like a lot of us, I'm a warrior. So you just keep going and it's fine. Also, I had just started a new job. I
um,
was 2.5 weeks whew, into my new job as chief marketing officer of a French technology company. So I needed to perform. I
right.
absolutely needed to perform. And it was still in COVID lockdown. The next day, I got on a call with my team. It was all men, which is not unusual because it's a tech company. And they saw, and I was also wearing very dark glasses because I couldn't handle light, though I didn't connect the dots.
Yeah.
And they were all saying, you need to do something about this. Like, we played sports. We know what concussions are like. You need to go and get checked out. And I was like, no, I'm totally fine. And then later that day, the pain started.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That specific concussion pain.
Yep. And just like any brain injury or concussion, whatever you want to call it, the symptoms come days, weeks, months, years down the road.
And they change.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that's been sort of confounding about this is you think you're living with this basket of symptoms, right? And it's
Right.
hard enough to adjust to living with those symptoms and the deficits. And just when you feel like, okay, I can sort of manage this, the symptoms change. It's like the
Yeah.
head injury says, you think you've got this? Hold my beer. I've got
Right.
something new for you. Right?
Exactly.
Um, and the symptoms kicked in pretty quickly. Like I got hit with, like I said, the light sensitivity was extreme. So I was wearing the dark glasses. There was also sound sensitivity. Like all of a sudden, all the city noises were making my head kind of vibrate.
Yeah.
My balance was off. My short-term memory was off. But it was ignore, work. I wanted to keep this brand new job. I wanted to prove to
Right.
them that they didn't make a mistake when they hired me. So
Exactly.
it was very confusing. The beginning was extremely confusing.
And then learning how to navigate your new life, going to grocery stores.
Oh, everything was overwhelming. That was the thing. It was like I know it now. I know that like what sort of irritates my brain, but I didn't know it then. And my brain was so sensitive. Everything felt like an assault.
Right.
Everything. And I didn't know what to do. I also I did my job. That was the one thing I was focused on doing, but I couldn't do anything social. I didn't want to be with people
Yeah.
because I couldn't answer their questions. I couldn't even understand their questions.
hmm
But also I was like, I couldn't handle texts. I couldn't handle emails. I couldn't handle phone calls except for work because that was the carve out. But I sort of isolated myself from everybody else because I didn't know how to like it was like some social aspect of my brain
hmm
was also damaged in the process.
Yeah. And some days you just don't want to talk to anybody.
Oh, absolutely. And as it went on, it became even more important to stop talking about it because at a certain point, it sort of stopped changing. There wasn't anything to say. Like in the
Yeah.
beginning, there were lots of treatments to talk about. And,
hmm
I was going to try this and this and this. But at a certain point, like a year or so in, when I'd kind of exhausted the treatments or made the decision that I
Right.
wasn't going to keep chasing treatment, when people said like, "So how's your head?" I just ended up saying, It's the same," and I still say it today. It's the same. It doesn't change.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it. Like if you want to talk about the projects I'm working on, great. But the head injury itself,
hmm
there's nothing to talk about.
Right. Because it doesn't really
Unless
change. The pain doesn't change. The
the pain doesn't change. I mean, the some of the deficits were dramatically improved by the therapies, by the rehab,
hmm
but the only thing that ever changed with the pain is what time in the day it started. Because it used to start at like 2 p.m., which was a big drag when I said to people, I can't do meetings after 2. I mean, 2,
Yeah.
but over time that moved later and later. Now it's more like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, though that's not absolute either. As you know, like
Right.
it changes. And some
hmm
days it's 2 and some days it's 10 a.m. Some days I wake up with it.
I
It's a
call it the
feral animal. You never know how it's going to behave.
right. I call it the big question mark.
Exactly.
I don't
Exactly.
know when I wake up and my feet hit the floor, am I going to have a midday or is it going to be way up here?
Yeah, you don't know, and you can't predict, and it isn't like anything you did the day before will necessarily help you figure out what the next it's not like if I do more on Monday, it's gonna hurt more on Tuesday. It doesn't necessarily work that way.
hmm
It's I mean, we know it's complicated, it's misunderstood. It's also unrelatable, right? I mean, this is the thing that I find so one of the things that's so challenging about this and language are really, really challenging because
hmm
if people haven't experienced it, they they can't relate to it. It's not their fault. They're
No,
trying. It's unrelatable.
it's very unrelatable. And I don't know if you're like me, but there's days when, I mean, it's just like every day people you talk to, your coworkers, how's your head today? Because for me, I've had a migraine level headache for almost 6 years.
Mhm.
So that never stops. Some days it's a little below, some days it's way above. But there's days when they ask you, how are you doing today? You just go, I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's easier to say that.
hmm
The other thing is like, and I think everybody who's had a head injury, a brain injury struggles with this. The language is really, really unhelpful, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the language to describe the symptoms is vague and it's flattening. And,
hmm
they say brain fog or cognitive fatigue. That's not what it feels like. And that language is just, it's the imprecision of that language, I think, makes this even more challenging
hmm
because you can't really tell people how you feel because the language doesn't really exist. And honestly, a lot of the work I've been doing for the last not 4 years, but 3 years has been to try to create language and create specificity around what I'm feeling. Because when I put that out into the world, people say, "Oh my God, that's happened to me too. I just
Yeah.
never heard it put that way."
hmm
And yeah,
Yeah. And for me, the mornings are my best. If you want to talk to me, grab me in the mornings because after lunch, later in the afternoon, my speech slows down. And when my brain is completely done for the day, the
yeah,
words are not words.
yeah. That's exactly it. It's almost like being an alcoholic, right? Like you have to catch
Right.
us early in the day um, before we start drinking, because by the afternoon, the language slurs, the brain
Exactly.
slows. Like all, I've never thought of it in alcoholic terms before, but just listening to you, that's what it feels like.
It
The
does.
mornings are when we're sharpest.
You do
Everything
sound like an
degrades as the day
alcoholic
goes on.
for real.
Yeah.
A great example was yesterday we went to Texas Roadhouse and I was okay. about up to the point to where we went there, but then we got sidetracked and did a few things. My
Right.
brain was done. When we got there, I was trying to order. My wife had to order for me because I just couldn't get the words to come out. And at one point, she had to go to the restroom and wanted to order a gallon of tea to go, and I couldn't put two words together. So she goes, "I'll just wait until I get here to order," because like, no telling what we'll get by the time we come back.
Right. Right. And the accommodations we need don't really exist, right? I mean, that's the thing. Like we have these limitations and these deficits,
Mhm.
and the world doesn't know how to accommodate us.
No, they don't.
It's not built for that, right? I mean,
Right.
all of our systems are built for people who start fine and stay fine. They're not built for people who start fine and then go through things,
Hmm.
whether it's brain injuries or anything else. They're just not built for it.
Right. There's so many misnomers about, I don't even know if that's the right word I'm thinking of, but misconceptions. We'll
Yeah.
go with that. There's so many
Yeah. Yeah.
misconceptions about the symptoms and the recovery because people just automatically assume, well, you're going to get better in a couple of days.
Right.
Boy, do I wish.
Well, I mean, that's like a huge part of this too, right? Is I think that the data is that between 70 and 90% of people who get a concussion recover in 10 to 14 days, right?
Right.
So they don't need any interventions. They're going to be just fine.
Right.
It's the rest of us, the 10 to 30% of us who are in what do they call it? PCS, post concussive syndrome.
Yes.
We don't get better, or maybe we get a little bit better over time. I
Mhm.
have spoken to people who've had these for 20, 30, up to 50 years. And some of them are like, I did get better. But that group of us who have this sort of intractable condition, we're kind of out in the wilderness. There
Right.
aren't treatments for us.
Hmm.
And we live in a world that expects quick recovery, right? That expects,
Right.
you're going to get better. And we also live in a world of sort of forced positivity. So here are 5 steps and 6 phases and 10 things. And if you do those things, you'll be better. And if
Right.
you're not better at the end, it's because you didn't try hard enough. It's not because those things
Mhm.
failed. It's you.
Exactly. And I've even talked to some people that down the road with the post concussion syndrome, they did get better, but then it's kind of like an alcoholic going back to that syndrome, that example again, because then you kind of fall off the wagon, not because
Right.
you did anything to
No, not at
cause it,
all.
but you do kind of backslide sometimes.
Absolutely. And again, like we don't have the language or the treatments or as a society, even the patience and the understanding to reckon with this, to reckon
Mhm.
with something that just doesn't get better and is kind of stuck or backslides.
Right.
Um, Honestly, that's why I had to create a world that does, is because the world that we live in isn't built for us.
Right. That's a good segue too. I teased it a little bit earlier. So tell us about best. I've
It's
already.
hard to pronounce. I'll say it. Best Guessistan. And the reason it's called Best Guessistan, which is not easy to say, which is also kind of the point that it's hard to say. That's kind of the point. It came out of some writing that I was doing. So when this first happened, besides like just trying, like the first year, I didn't write anything. I just, like I said, focused on one foot in front of the other, keep my job, which eventually was impossible. But I started writing in the second year because I've always written. Writing was always a big part of my career and my personal life. And so I was like, let me just write and figure out, use it to try and figure out like what is going on. And it was called, my original blog was called Concussed CMO because I was a chief marketing officer and I was concussed. And I was writing, like I said, just to try to understand it. And then it expanded a little and it became a way for me to let my friends and family know what was going on. Because, like I said before, I cut myself off from everybody. Didn't mean I didn't love them and want them to know. I just
Mhm.
honestly, I couldn't deal with them, right?
Right.
So it became that. And then I was like, let me try some different angles with this writing. Let me take my marketing brain and see if using my marketing brain and the marketing sort of frameworks can help me understand what's going on. So I wrote a creative brief about my brain injury. I briefed a creative. I mean, it was all nonsense. It was all made up, but these were just attempts to try and understand what was going on. And then one day I was writing about the problems with the treatments because I was pretty much at the end of treatment and I had
Mhm.
made the decision, do I want to spend the rest of my life chasing treatment, which a lot of people do, and good luck to them,
Right.
or do I want to get on with my life and figure out how to live with this and stop trying to deny? You can't deny
Yeah.
that it's happening. You really
Right.
can't. But you can succumb to it, right? You can become a victim of it. So I was like, I
Mhm.
don't want to do that. So I was writing this post and saying that, the treatments weren't working. Nobody knew what to do. Everybody was just taking their best guess. Welcome to Best Guessistan.
Yep.
And I just sat with that for a few days, didn't really think about it. And then I was like, wait, what if it really is a place? What if there's a place for people like us who we live in the after, right? We don't, we like, so I developed this language and this model, right? So the language I use to describe what happens when you have a brain injury is rupture, right? It's not a gentle divide. It is ripping something in half, right? That's what
Right.
rupture implies. And when you're living on the other side of rupture, you can't go back to the person you were before.
No.
But you also don't, you can't, that's gone. And comparing yourself to the person you were before is a trap because you'll always fail. But you
Right.
also don't know who you're becoming, right? So you're in this weird state. And I was like, I was like, I need to like build out this world, right? Like this is an idea, fine, but what if we actually create a world? So I stole, the good ones borrow, the great ones steal. I stole the New York Times travel. They do this thing in the travel section called like 36 hours, where like it's 36. If you only have 36 hours to spend in a city or a place, what would you do? And they list all the places. So I decided to do that with Best Guessistan, which forced me to actually think of what are the places. So I started building ministries. And honestly, the reason they were, people ask me where the ministries come from. The ministries come from a very strange place. I got myself hooked on historical Korean dramas. I was recovering from some shoulder surgery. I was kind of locked in, immobilized. And these historical Korean dramas just like got to me in a way. They made this entire episode like survivable. And the country in those days had ministers and ministries. And I liked that idea. Also, ministries seem to have more autonomy than like departments. Departments are always, if you just go into sort of organizational theory, like departments are always subsidiary to upper management. I wanted something that showed that it had autonomy and agency. So I created ministries, but I also created like a transportation system and a government system and infrastructure. And like I built it out into like a real country. And it's built for people like us, right? So like probably the first one I came up with that was the most representative was the Ministry of Accommodation, because we all knew that, like I said, the world is not built for us.
No.
And you have to negotiate every accommodation, right? You have to explain why. You probably have to document why. It's like, what if there was a place and a ministry where all of those accommodations were anticipated, not negotiated, right? What if there was a place where it was okay not to be okay, and nobody said to you all the time, well, aren't you better yet?
Yeah.
Because everyone in this place understood. And even though I started this from a brain injury point of view, once I really thought about it, it was like, okay, brain injuries are one door into the world of rupture, but they're not the only ones. Like a lot of things rip your life in half. I mean, it could be caregiving or grief or loss or burnout. It's still mostly focused on TBI, but I did expand the idea of rupture to include some of these other things because invisible disabilities, which is what we carry, actually includes a lot of mental illness, neurodiversity, a lot of things that people relate to. So I started world building. I'm still world building. I think I created 3 ministries just this week because every time a new problem comes up or a new situation comes up, sort of the Best Guessistan way to deal with it is let's build a ministry. And let's think it through that way. And how does the ministry approach this issue? And it's become a good way to sort of think things through. And it's also, to be honest, I was in a very dark place in the second year of this head injury, right? I was sad. I didn't know who I was. My confidence was gone, right? I mean, that's the thing is this thing strips the confidence like off of you, like stripping bark off a tree. And it's like, who are you without the things that made you the person you were? But for me, it stripped the things that made me, a lot of them, or at least in the beginning, it felt that way. And so year 2 was just sad and dark. And I was isolated. And I mean, even from my kids and my husband, I was just isolated. And the only thing, I was in therapy. I tried to continue to see if the therapy would help. It didn't. So I stopped that. Baking helped, but didn't help enough.
Yeah.
The writing helped, but didn't help enough. But what helped enough was creating this entire world and like thinking through a governmental structure, an infrastructure, like all of this stuff made it a big enough problem to occupy my brain and get me out of the dark place. And it's not going to be the same thing for everybody, right? I mean, everybody's got to find their own way out. But I think this idea that you live with it and what can you make of it? Like you've made a ton of it, right? You wrote a book, you've done all of these things. Like, I did it through writing. And I think the more we can help people like just reckon with it and move on from it.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the other thing, and I don't know if you've had this experience. This one only occurred to me. I have a ministry for it, but one of the biggest changes was something I only realized last week, and almost 4 years in. Until the brain injury, I was relentlessly forward looking. Like I never thought about the past
Okay.
deliberately. I thought I looked ahead, I thought ahead, I planned ahead. Everything was what's the next, what's the new. That was my orientation. And it had problems. I mean, I'm not going to say it was perfect, and
Yeah.
it was kind of hard on some people around me, but that was the way I lived my life, was forward, forward, forward. And all of a sudden I realized one day last week, I can't do that anymore. And not only can I not do that, I'm stuck in the past. My brain keeps reliving, rethinking every decision I've ever made, reliving every mistake I've ever made. And I'm working right now on figuring out how to break that pattern.
Yeah.
But that was such a profound change. So I created a ministry of backwards forwards because I went from being forward looking to sort of backwards stuck. But the writing and the world building are the things that are helping me get out of that. But now that I realize it, it's like that's the thing also. Like I don't know if I had felt that way, if my brain was working that way for the entire 4 years, or if that's a recent change. I just don't know. It wasn't where I focused.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a hard and I also looked up to see if like there was neuroscience behind that, and there is.
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
lot of neuroscience. There's a lot of people with brain injuries, like a lot. It was like 50 to 60%
Mm-hmm.
go through this inability to think because of it's actually because the brain is designed to think predictively and like anticipate stuff that could hurt you, and like our brains don't do that as well anymore. I mean, have
No.
you had that experience?
A little bit. One thing that I will say that I've noticed is a lot of people know my story about coming in the door and hitting my head. Whenever I grab for a door now, I either will
Yeah.
lean backwards a lot or I will put the other arm out, like to stop myself.
Yeah. Well, you're protecting yourself, and it's
Yeah.
also the PTSD. I mean,
Hmm.
I had trouble with Ubers for quite a while. I am
Oh,
still
I
extremely
guarantee.
careful.
Yeah.
Extremely careful.
You probably know. Now, just remember, I'm out of the car, but
Right.
don't do
Exactly.
anything until I say to.
It's, but we do have PTSD
You do.
from it. I mean, how do you not like your accident when you were telling me about it? And just like all the blood, because you're right, like nothing bleeds like a head injury.
Hmm.
It's really scary and disconcerting. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's the other thing. The stories I've heard about how people have gotten their injuries. I mean, there are the normal ones of like, something fell on me and da, da, da. But like, I heard a story recently about a woman who got a brain injury because of a high voltage electrical accident.
Wow.
That was new. That was
Yep.
completely new. Or like the fact that 60% of concussions go undiagnosed because people don't even think they've hit their head hard enough for it to cause a problem. And
Hmm.
my OT has said to me, what happens is she was like, people don't get diagnosed because they don't see that, they don't recognize this. And then they develop symptoms and but they have no idea they're connected. And she said, one of the things that a brain injury does, she said, it destabilizes your blood pressure. And she said, so she's had patients and she knows of people who develop blood pressure problems. They have high blood pressure out of nowhere. They go to their primary care docs. They get treated for the blood pressure without anyone looking at the underlying cause.
Yeah.
And these are just random symptoms. And no one's putting it together because they didn't get the diagnosis in the first place.
Right. And we don't live in a world where people are educating everyone to say, "Oh, you hit your head, you should probably get it checked out."
Exactly. And that was actually what this woman who was electrocuted said. I mean, her partner died in the accident.
Mm,
EMS looked at her and they were like, you seem fine. No one suggested to her, you might want to get checked out,
yeah.
you know? And we don't have enough access to good screening. The testing isn't good enough. A lot of people live in what a friend of mine referred to as a specialist desert.
Hmm.
It's really hard. I mean, I was fortunate because I'm in New York. I had access, even though I had to pull strings and use connections, but I was able to get to a really, really good concussion neurologist who's actually a neuro-ophthalmologist. She was able to get me into Rusk rehabilitation. So I was able to work on vision and vestibular, which were two of my biggest deficits.
Yeah.
And those helped. But at a certain point, it was like I still got to like the point where it was like, nobody else can help anymore. There's nothing else that can be done. So
Yeah.
let's build from here.
Hmm.
Let's make something from here.
They all want to recreate the wheel every single time, too. You'll
Say
go
that
through.
again?
They want to recreate the wheel. You'll go see
Yes.
somebody new, and they're like, "Well, have you tried XYZ?" Well, obviously.
Well, right. And the other thing is like there's a lot of snake oil. I mean, there's a lot of snake oil in general in what people
Yes.
recommend.
Hmm.
And people with no credentials like influencers. I mean, I worked in pharma and life sciences for a long time. So I
Yeah.
have very specific opinions about these things. But like supplements are the ones that like totally drive me crazy because people will come on Reddit or just say to me, like, you have to try these supplements. They totally work. I know, supplements do not go through a rigorous process like drugs
Right.
do. They go through the same vague process that like food does. So there's no science
Hmm.
behind the supplements. And in fact, a lot of them cause harm. I was talking to someone recently who was telling me that, like turmeric, in the amounts that you eat turmeric in food are not a problem, but there's been no testing on whether or not that concentrated high amount of turmeric that people are taking in the form of supplements can hurt or help. These things can hurt. So there is a lot of snake oil, and there are a lot of bad recommendations and bad science. And
Absolutely.
and the truth is, there are no treatments for this. I mean, that's the thing. Is like there are no medications for this. There are. I think you had mentioned. Do they? Because I know they gave me a lot of sort of repurposed migraine meds,
Hmm.
and that's a very common thing. And a lot of them are ones I know because I had migraine for a long time. But there are no drugs specifically meant for this, which is amazing. Like when you and I were talking about this before, but like when this first happened to me, I was like, there have to be treatments for this because football players get this. Oh, and by the way, I think that OJ had CTE, and it was before
I
CTE
guarantee
was
he did.
identified,
Yes.
right? Because he did all of the same things that the other, right? Anyway, different conversation for a different time. But like football players get this, people in the military, like people we say we value as a society
Hmm.
live with this. So I was like, there must be investment and research and treatments. And so first I just looked for drugs. There was nothing. And then I went to all the pharma companies and I looked at their pharma pipelines. Like, what do you have in different stages of development? Little. Little, like maybe one or two little biotechs were working on things. I looked more recently. I did find a little bit more. What they seem to be working on are things you can take immediately when you're diagnosed. Sort of, I think it's similar to the idea of like if you can get someone, if you recognize stroke symptoms very, very quickly, the
Yeah.
sooner you get someone into care, there are things that can actually like break up the blood clot or whatever it is. I think they're
Right.
looking for things that will sort of prevent what you and I are living with, like if you get to it
Hmm.
right away. But that presupposes that everyone is diagnosed. 60% of concussions are undiagnosed. So like
Right.
there's an awareness problem, there's an access problem. I mean, this affects so many people, and yet like a lot of the basic blocking and tackling that exists with other medical conditions doesn't seem to exist here. The systems
Right.
aren't there. Well, and that's my other bugaboo of the system. So
But what really bugs me is this is what happened for me. You go to the hospital, they check you out, and most often they don't want to call it a brain injury. They all want to go, it's just a concussion.
it's just a concussion,
Well, you
right?
know what? Concussions are brain injuries,
Yes,
but they don't want to call it that for whatever reason. And then the hospitals don't have the appropriate documentation to hand you and say, now you go home and you need to get plenty of rest, get occupational therapy, go through all these steps. What do they usually say? Go home, rest a few days, and go back to work.
right,
Worst
exactly.
advice you can give somebody.
It is well, and I'm really glad you brought up the topic of advice because there's another problem that I experienced as I've gone through. I don't like calling it a journey because like everything's a journey, but along this weird path that people like us are on. So the guidance, the medical guidance on how to treat a concussion changed about 10 or 15 years ago when serious studies were done, right? Real clinical research. And the guidance before this research was cognitive rest, lie in a dark room, no screens, like just shut down.
Hmm.
After all of this research was done, the guidance changed because they found that people who actually didn't do that, who still continued to engage with people and information and screens, actually started to recover better. But the problem was that information didn't filter down from the data science to all of the neurologists, let alone primary care. So, I mean, I have a neighbor who her concussion was, I don't know, 5 years ago. She was given 15-year-old guidance on lie in a dark room and full cognitive rest. And
Yeah.
if the information isn't even getting to the doctors, like no wonder no one, I mean, that's maybe to the point of why no one even wants to say it's a brain injury. They don't know how to treat a brain
They
injury.
don't. And you know what else they do is they'll say a lot of these neurologists are still, like you just said, they're going by old guidelines. They'll say where you're at 2 years out, that's it. That you're
Hmm.
not going to get any better. That was a study they did in football. I can't remember how many years ago, but it was decades ago.
Yeah,
That's not
exactly.
true.
No, it's not true. But they're using old information,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I mean, look, there are like 4 million new concussions a year that are
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed, right? But yet the access and the information is, and the aware is just still not there, either among regular people like us or even among the medical community. I mean, there's just not enough information about this. And also, there aren't enough neurologists. There's a
No, there's
massive
not.
neurologist shortage.
Right.
And I've talked to people, and I'm sure you have, who can't even get to a neurologist.
My neurologist said something I thought was very interesting and very true. He said you could get a room full of people and hit them in the exact same spot on their head at the exact same force, and every single one of them are going to display different symptoms.
I believe it. I believe it. So so on my podcast, I did a panel where I had three people who had TBIs. I was one, someone else moderated them. And all three of us had what were we had, I actually wrote a ministry about this called Same Code, Different Reality, because we all had the same ICD-10 code, which is basically a billing code. It's treated like a diagnostic code, but it's really a billing code, right?
Hmm.
And here were the three of us who all had TBIs. We all had concussions, so mild brain injury. Three completely different sets of symptoms. Completely, none of us had a symptom in common. So
Wow.
three completely different sets of treatment and three completely different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the problem with this too. I mean, if you break your leg, you're pretty much in the same boat as everybody else who's ever broken their leg.
Exactly.
I mean, you and I and 500 other people can have completely different experiences. And
Hmm.
I mean, if you're a provider, how do you even treat that? If you're a clinical researcher, where do you start?
Good question.
Right? I mean, one thing my OT told me when I was talking about symptoms, she said, pretty much everyone who has a brain injury has some problems with their vision. She was like, vision symptoms are like the most common.
Yeah.
And also, she said dizziness. Dizziness can be a predictor of long term
Mm.
problems. But she said the vision problems seem to be like the common ground. But again, a lot of people don't have access to vision therapy
No.
and vision rehab.
Wow. You said the dizziness, and that can hit you out of nowhere. My wife took me to my neurologist appointment last week, and typically we get to park on the first floor in the handicap part.
Mhm.
Well, there was all the handicap spots were gone, so we had to go into the garage. By the time we got to the second floor, I told her, I said, "Where is my pills for nausea?" I was getting dizzy. I was
I'm feeling
nauseated.
it.
I told her, I said, "I've got to close my eyes until you park because I just couldn't take it anymore."
Oh, I know. I know. No, mine is so bad that if I'm on a call if I'm doing this with somebody and, or I'm like on a phone FaceTime thing and they move around in the room, I have to look away.
Yeah,
I can't watch the motion.
right. Now, do you still drive?
Okay, to be honest, I'm a New Yorker. I didn't really, I mean, I got my license when I was in my 30s because I was kind of shamed into it. And I didn't really start driving in earnest until like last summer. So I don't really have a good before and after because everything after all my driving experience is basically since I've had a head injury. So
Gotcha.
I sort of have to the mulligan. Do I say mulligan? Yeah, that one is it's unfair because I was never really a driver to start with, but it's affected everything else.
Yeah. Now, I do still drive
Can you drive?
very little. If it's local to, say a few minute drive, I'll do that. But if you're talking a half an hour, that's my wife
Yeah,
every
yeah.
time.
No, I know, I
Now,
know. A lot of things.
I was going to church one day and a train was passing me. I had to pull off the road. It was making me nauseous just because of that movement next to me.
Yes,
And
yes.
snow,
Yes. Hmm?
forget it. If
Yeah.
it snows, it's coming at you, and it's just like, I don't know how to describe it other than it's very nauseating.
It is nauseating. My neurologist refers to this idea of brain irritation, which I found like very useful because that's
Hmm.
really what it feels like. And it feels like when there's too much stimuli or when things are moving, the
Right.
irritation becomes so extreme that you have to look away. You just it's intolerable.
It's like someone's shaking your brain, literally.
Yes, that's what it feels like.
Hmm.
That's what it feels like. And it's again, these are things that are impossible for people to understand. Um, can I talk about the brain changes thing? About
Sure.
okay, so back to the language thing that we were talking about in the beginning. I found that even people who were living with the symptoms had trouble articulating how those things felt. So I decided to start doing a little series, a little video series. It appears in pure text only. That's just for Reddit, of documenting specific ways I've noticed that my brain has changed. Because I thought it would be useful for me. This is therapy for me, but it's turned out to be useful for other people. So I make these little videos, and they're like, "Here's how my brain worked before. Here's how my brain worked after." So like
Hmm.
before I cook and I bake, and you and I we have baking in common too.
Right.
Um, it used to be I went to baking school, I went to cooking school, and I knew that like before you start a new recipe, you read a recipe from the beginning to the end once. That was it. That was all I needed to do. Read it from beginning to end once. There was a video. I never watched it unless it was a baking project that had with tricky shaping, and I needed to watch it.
Yeah.
I still bake just as much. I probably bake more than I did. I have to read the recipe 50 times. I watch the video 100 times. And it's like I read it, and instead of the words lodging in my brain and like they do this, bing, it's like they're bouncing off my brain, right?
Yeah.
So like that was one. My inability to handle group texts. Group texts are
Oh,
awful now, right?
I hate group text.
Right. And you didn't hate them before, did you?
I was half and half.
All right, all right, all right. But now because the stimulation of voices and pings and
Hmm.
it's too much. Like, I can't handle a group text. Like that was another. I mean, I've done like 50 of these, so I'm not going to try to remember all of them. Um, but like my need for constant audio, like I have an earbud in all the time because, and it can't be any audio. Like I have to know what the music is, so I know there's not like not too much horn
Yeah.
because too much horn is like this. But podcasts, like it quiets the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was. Wait, let me just see because I actually like. Hang on. Okay, so my other favorite. Oh, I talk to myself. I walk around the house. I talk to myself. I never did that. I thought people who did that were nuts. Now I'm one of those people, and I can't. I think things through out loud. I do everything out loud. It's the weirdest thing. And I actually put that on Reddit, um, in the TBI subreddit, and someone responded to me and said, my TBI, I've had it for 50 years, which first of all just was like, oh my God, 50 years. But he said, I never realized I did that until I read what you wrote.
Really?
And I
Wow.
was like, that's really interesting because again, it's like you don't even, there are so many things going on and there are so
Mhm.
many wheels turning in different ways and your brain processes in different ways, right? And it's looking for new neural pathways. Like you're sometimes not even aware of all the changes. So I just decided to start documenting them. Maybe because it would help other people. Maybe it would help someone who's doing research because there are different, it's, I'm trying to show maybe which parts of the brain are more involved.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like the brain works differently after the like. Does it feel like you actually feel it working differently?
Well, for me, we call it Rob's think speaking. I'll have a whole conversation without saying a word. And yeah, and then I'll be like, we should do that. And my wife will just look at me like, we should do what? We should get our tires rotated. We weren't talking about tires being rotated.
Mm,
I just had a whole conversation in my head.
yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah.
And I'm having conversations out loud with myself all the time. And it's strange. It's strange. Fortunately, we're moving up to the country, and so nobody can hear me. It'll be fine.
That also gets me in trouble too because she'll be like, "You're not answering me." I'm like,
Yeah.
I just told you, yes, that's a good idea. You didn't
But
say
she's
a
like, what
word.
idea are you responding to? But that's, and even like your wife and my husband and like people who live with us and probably understand this as well as anyone who hasn't been through it can. They
Yeah.
can't. They still can't because nobody can. It's the reality of this. It
Yeah.
is uniquely unrelatable.
Yeah, because I think sometimes when we have, I don't want to say good days, better days. When we
Mhm.
have better days and we do look a little bit like our old selves, and then bam, it hits the wall.
Right.
They forget, oh, you have a brain injury, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah,
This
exactly.
is me, my life rewired.